Members of Parliament, Ministers of Government, ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome back to this meeting of Parliament. The meeting of Parliament handling the draft 2025 budget of the country St Maarten as presented by the government of St Maarten. We have had a presentation from several ministers regarding their budget. We continue with these presentations as I invite the Minister of Education, Culture, Youth and Sport, Ms. Melissa Gums, to take the floor and present her ministry's budget. Minister Gums, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady, and good evening to the honourable members of Parliament, yourself, the Griffier, my colleague ministers, and those joining us online or via radio and the general public. Madam Chair Lady, it's a privilege to present the 2025 budget for the Ministry of Education, Culture, Youth and Sport. While no new policies have been taken up in this budget, the budget does reflect our commitment to continuing on, for the moment, the 2024 budget policies that focus on moving St Maarten towards a future where every citizen is skilled in some way, shape or form, every child is empowered to be their own personal advocate as they chase their dreams and goals, and where our country thrives through the interconnected vehicles of education, culture and sports. I must also note for Parliament and the public's knowledge that there was a version sent to the members of Parliament. There will be an updated version sent as well, as we were making some slight changes while my other colleagues were presenting. The agenda for this budget will be a budget overview, capital investments and income for the departments and divisions, and the way forward. The vision for the Ministry of ECYS, based on the strategic plan from 2016 to 2026, was to meet the demands and support the people of St Maarten to become self-confident, resilient, lifelong learners, creative and critical thinkers. The mission was that youth will thrive and reach their full potential to become active citizens with a sense of shared responsibility. We will ensure that there are ample opportunities for the people of St Maarten to be lifelong learners. We will safeguard our cultural identity by protecting and promoting our tangible and intangible heritage, and our citizens will actively participate in sports and other physical activities. When we look at the impacts of the approach within the ministry, there is a measure twice and cut once philosophy. Proper assessment to ensure the conditions are placed for equal opportunity and access to quality education, culture and sport, which will secure continued development of human capital for economic growth, as well as contribute to nation building, social cohesion, and identity development. The policy priorities within the Ministry of ECYS: Policy Area 1, integrating education, culture, and sports with labour market needs. Our secondary education reform plan prioritizes the development of excellent schools, equipping students with the skills needed to meet societal and labour market demands. These initiatives align with the reform measures of the country package and the recommendations on public education spending. Skilled citizens, Madam Chair Lady, are the foundation of a resilient economy, and this investment strengthens both individuals and our nation. Policy Area 2, improving access to education. Access to good and quality education is a cornerstone of our national development vision. The 2025 budget emphasizes funding compulsory public and subsidized education to ensure accessibility is possible at all levels. Special education and local higher education legislation are priorities, ensuring inclusivity and efficiency in the delivery of education. Policy Area 3, improving learning outcomes and enhancing student learning performance. To improve academic performance, we are implementing a comprehensive language policy, strategies to enhance literacy and numeracy, a national framework for assessing education quality under the Education Supervision Law. We are also addressing, as my colleague Minister Justice mentioned earlier, school violence, expanding summer school programs and amending laws to ensure better educational outcomes. Policy Area 4, modernizing educational, cultural and sports facilities. Providing safe, sustainable infrastructure is vital. Reconstruction funds and capital investments will continue to repair schools, gymnasiums and libraries. These investments support health, social cohesion, and participation in sports and culture, which are essential for community well-being. Policy Area 5, developing professionals working with children. Professional development for teachers and specialists is at the forefront of this ministry. Initiatives include revising the education function book, conducting research on remuneration, and operationalizing the Charles Leopold Bell School to advance inclusive education. Training in the youth and youth sector ensures a skilled workforce for the healthy development of all children, especially the vulnerable. Policy Area 6, Youth Awareness and Participation. We are focused, Madam Chair Lady, on enforcing the International Convention on the Rights of the Child and addressing the recommendations of the Committee on the Rights of the Child. And activities to enhance youth participation in society will also strengthen their role as future leaders and active citizens. Policy Area 7, Increasing Participation in Education, Sports and Culture. Public-private partnerships, which is a focus of this ministry moving forward, will expand sports programs and infrastructure. And the Youth Hub will deliver child-friendly services, promote the benefits of sports, and advance social cohesion through cultural initiatives. Policy Area 8, Promoting Parental Involvement. Parents play the most vital role in their children's education and their extracurricular development. Prevention programs, equality initiatives, and guidance for vulnerable families are all part of the plan to foster stronger support networks for students. Policy Area 9, Compliance with Youth Legislation. The Integrated Youth Policy Framework 2020 to 2030 and the National Policy Framework for Early Childhood Development ensure structured, effective implementation of youth development strategies. This ministry plans to integrate sustainable financing for youth programs as reconstruction funding is actually beginning to conclude. Policy Area 10, Effective and Efficient Budget Use. Strengthening financial management and accountability is a priority. The ministry is committed to ensuring that every dollar serves the vision of accessible, quality education, culture, and sports, and there are assessment plans in place to ensure this. Policy Area 11, Strengthening Management. The MECI's Management and Information System will enhance monitoring and evaluation, beginning with the education sector and expanding to sports, culture, and youth, because you cannot measure what you cannot manage what you cannot measure. Employee satisfaction survey insights will guide management reforms, and I'm looking forward to the deployment of this program to ensure that we can effectively assess how MECI's is performing. Policy Area 12, Sports and Culture as Economic Drivers. Promoting sports and creative industries supports economic diversification, as my colleague Minister Teyat mentioned earlier. Encouraging top athletes and cultural representatives to participate internationally will enhance St Maarten's global presence and will foster national pride. And as you can see when you drive on the roads by certain spots, there's already some initiatives geared towards promoting that. Policy Area 13, Youth Empowerment and Responsibility. Life skills and leadership programs will equip youth to take informed decisions, overcome challenges, and prepare for the labor market. And the Business Outreach and Placement Program will offer valuable experience to bridge gaps in skills and confidence. Policy Area 14, Regional and International Representation. Supporting athletes and cultural representatives at international events, as mentioned earlier, strengthens our global footprint. And collaborations with the NSI and SMSF will maximize participation and foster excellence. And Policy Area 15, Heritage and Nation Building. Cultural heritage is central to St Maarten's identity and our development, and it is important that we integrate arts, heritage, and creative industries into formal and informal education, ensuring a well-rounded foundation for nation building. Now to delve a bit into the economic expenses per category in this budget, Madam Chair Lady. I just want to note, historically, the budget of ECYS has been the largest budget. However, it must be noted that the biggest chunk of that budget, approximately 63%, is allocated to subsidies for the subsidized schools. The second largest chunk is allocated to personnel costs, which includes public school teachers, approximately 23% of the budget. The third largest chunk is school bus payments, totaling 3.6 million guilders. The fourth chunk is what I consider an investment in our future and is allocated to study financing and is a little over 3 million guilders. The remainder, which should then be considered as the actual budget of the ministry for its own policy and initiative development after the other statutory obligations have been disbursed, is a little over 10 million guilders. This is a point I want to make because the notion that ECYS has the biggest budget and should be doing more is one that is based on the overall figure presented in the budget. In reality, The actual amount available is minimal, and I urge everyone, the public and the members of Parliament and my colleague ministers, to take that into consideration as we move through 2025 and thereafter. Personal expenses, as you may note, have increased in 2025. This is a result of the projected indexation of salary scales. Additionally, there is an increase in the vacation allowance to 8%, along with budgeted increments in the salaries of civil servants. In goods and services, there's been no increase in the total budget for this from the budget amendment of 2024 to 2025. The only change is a reallocation of funds from study financing to goods and services to support the project study in the region. Subsidies have increased by 2,353,271 guilders in 2025. This increase is, of course, due to a 2% raise in salaries for subsidized school boards. If we look at some closer insight into the department budgets, just to be clear as well, that the discrepancy that you see in education between 2024 and 2025 in the Department of Education, that's because that variance of 2 million guilders is extra subsidy, that it's not directly related to the subsidized schools, but is still part of the department's overall budget. A comparison between the Minister, Cabinet, and Staff Bureau of ECYS, there are no significant changes that have been made or shifts in the totals here. It remains relatively the same looking from 2024's budget amendment. Looking at capital investments and income, the ministry does bring in a little bit of income, I have to say. It's not a big-time revenue-generating entity. However, study financing repayments make up the bulk of that income. No shift between 2024 and 2025, with 371,689 guilders being brought in. And the division examinations brings in a steady 150,000 guilders as well. However, we are looking at optimizing their abilities to increase their income. Regarding capital investments, network upgrades and expansion at our public schools, as well as desktop computer replacements and furniture equipment for SMVTS, as well as hardware and software at our schools is self-explanatory. I just wanted to touch a bit on the allocation of the 350,000 guilders to Martin Luther King School. Based on a request from DPE and after consultation with New Works Department within VROMI and the school's management, 2 upgrades to MLK were deemed extremely urgent, and as a result, the available CapEx funds will be reallocated accordingly. The project involves upgrading the drainage infrastructure around the entire school to minimize flooding and enable the smooth flow of water after excessive rains. These works include, first, the demolition of the old concrete septic tank, the installation of French drains around the school buildings, and the waterproofing of the floors and walls of each building. The playground itself would be resurfaced to ensure it meets safety standards for students. The current state of the playground presents potential hazards and affects students' physical education opportunities. The intention is to resurface the areas to maintain a safe, enjoyable space for students during their outdoor activities, utilizing flooring materials that allow water to drain, such as porous asphalt or pervious concrete. Regarding the renovation of sport facilities, prior to my assuming office, Budget 2025 was submitted with an overview for capital expenditures related to an HVAC system and flooring for the LB Scott Sports Auditorium, as well as stadium lights at Raoul Illich Sports Complex. The HVAC system at the time could not be considered under the currently running trust fund project, as the trust fund was not established for installation or works on facilities that were not present before Hurricane Irma, hence why it was included in CapEx. Since then, thanks to my colleague minister, the Ministry of TIAT expressed interest in assisting ECYS with this HVAC system, and as such, we are now in the tendering process for these works. Regarding the flooring of the sports auditorium and the stadium lights at the Raoul Illich Sports Complex, these works were included in the overview for NRPB. Unfortunately, due to the timing taken by that project, and what was done with the artificial field and track, it was decided to include these works in CapEx. ECYS was able to complete the field and track in 2024 and was hoping to complete these other items in 2025. In the meantime, the agreement with the contractor has been signed to execute the works at the sport facilities, which means that these works are going to be executed under the NRPB projects. With this in mind, there are several potential projects that we are exploring to deviate these funds to that will provide necessary upgrades to existing sports facilities. It's my intention to consult with the Department of Sports and the National Sports Institute to identify those most critical items. Regarding the expansion and renovation of the John Larmony Center, the expansion of JLC, the Ministry, of course, recognizes the importance of those proposed renovations and expansions, and this initiative aligns with our vision to support artistic development and the growth of the culture creative industry, a critical component of our strategy to diversify St. Maarten's economy under the Orange Economy Framework. The outlined phased approach for the top floor development and the subsequent addition of a small theatre demonstrates a comprehensive plan to enhance the centre's capacity to serve as an incubator for creative talent. Specifically, Madam Chair Lady, Phase 1 and Phase 2 relates to the foundational work and completion of the top floor, including the addition of dance studio space, visual arts rooms, office spaces, and critical infrastructure upgrades, which are essential steps in meeting the immediate needs of our artistic community. This has already been approved by government, so Phase 1 and 2. Phase 3, the construction of a small theatre in the courtyard area will fulfill the centre's vision, providing a versatile venue for performances and creative showcases. We do acknowledge, of course, the preliminary cost estimate of 3.5 million guilders for Phase 3 and are working diligently to explore funding opportunities to ensure the realization of this transformative project. This initiative, of course, represents a vital investment in the future of our cultural and creative industries, fostering artistic excellence and economic growth. The Ministry stands committed to collaborating with stakeholders to bring said vision to life. And the expansion of NEPA. Where it regards the expansions at NEPA, this would include an administrative office at 125,000 guilders, student engagement center with cafe at 100,000 guilders, a simulation lab for the nursing program at 125,000 guilders, an expansion of the culinary and hospitality units at 125,000 guilders for a total of 500,000 guilders. Moving along to a look at our division budgets. Just to explain again, the Division of Education Innovation, there is an increase in costs for day, primarily due to funds being shifted from study financing's Study in the Region project being reallocated to day for initiatives that the department is looking to execute, particularly in the fields of artificial intelligence and other tech-related projects. Division DPE has experienced an increase of 729,406 guilders, which is attributed to index salaries, the 8% vacation allowance, and salary increments across 194 staff members. Regarding the other divisions, the increase in costs is related to projected indexations, the vacation allowance, and salary increments for staff. Just as a comparison, as I mentioned previously, the number may look very large, but ultimately what is left for the ministry after all required disbursements have been executed is about 10 million guilders. This is, of course, something that I will touch on in my last slide to explain how we plan to bridge that gap. Right. What's next for the Ministry of ECYS? A review of foundation-based education, FBE, in 2025. The review will include the following: curriculum, teaching strategies, teacher trainings, principles promoted by FBE, learning methods and assessments, and instructional materials being used in all government-funded primary schools on St. Maarten. The objective of the ministry is to use research findings and recommendations to inform structural improvements in the delivery of primary education, which would improve student learning outcomes and provide our children with a stronger foundation for their academic future. A review of the strategic plan for ECYS 2026 to 2036. The strategic plan of MECIS expires as of 2026. Together with my cabinet, our SG, and department and division heads, we have agreed to begin reviewing that plan so that the updated strategy for the ministry can be finalized and published on time. This will, of course, entail consulting with all ECYS stakeholders, internal and external, to ensure that there's a progressive and scalable way forward for the ministry. Public-private partnerships that work. There are opportunities for public-private partnerships and other funding that benefit the ultimate beneficiaries of everything that the Ministry of ECYS does, students and the wider public. However, this minister does not like haphazard approaches to solving long-running structural and systemic issues. Together with internal ministry stakeholders, we will be looking at properly structured public-private partnerships, as well as at other funding and collaborative opportunities to supplement the 10 million guilders that is currently available for projects and initiatives. A review of the lump sum system. The Ministry of ECYS is conducting a comprehensive assessment of the LSS in collaboration with SOAB. This holistic review includes several elements, of which increased compliance, accountability, and quality assurance, which all form essential parts in this process. This process aims to establish an evaluation framework to regularly evaluate the educational funding provided to school boards. The Ministry has prioritized a preliminary review, which aims to address the more immediate concerns related to, for example, the impact of the increased cost of consumption and categorical deficiencies encountered by school boards. The Ministry aims to advise on the preliminary assessment by 2026 and on the comprehensive evidence-based assessment by 2029. And the continued execution of NRPB projects. The status of the Fostering Resilience Learning Project, FRLP, just to give a brief overview of components 1 and 2, the FRLP aims to rebuild inclusive learning environments and restore critical library services in St Maarten, severely impacted by Hurricane Irma. Key facilities under this initiative include the Sister Marie Laurence Primary School in Mid-Region, Charles Leopold Bell Primary School in Coal Bay, and the St Maarten Library in Phillipsburg. The demolition and reconstruction timeline, just to share a bit following update meetings as well with the NRPB, the demolition and reconstruction of these properties will proceed in a phased approach, as I outlined. The Sister Marie Laurence School, slated to begin January 2025, of course, based on mobilization of the contractor. Construction would start April 2025 after site clearance, and expected completion would be August 2026. Charles Leopold Bell Primary School, demolition will begin March 2025, design completion by May. Construction would begin March 2026, and expected completion Q4 2027. For the St. Maarten Library, demolition will begin February-March 2025, design completion May 2025, construction will begin March 2026, and expected completion Q1 2027. The overall FRLP is projected to conclude by April 2027. The FRLP represents a vital step in rebuilding educational infrastructure and restoring access to learning resources for the community. The Ministry remains committed to ensuring the timely and efficient delivery of these essential projects, and I have asked the NRPB to ensure that where things can be hastened, that they are, with the full support of the Ministry and the Minister. Honourable Members of Parliament, Madam Chair Lady, as I conclude my presentation, I wish to emphasize that this budget reflects our commitment to advancing education, culture, youth development, and sports despite the significant challenges we face. While the Ministry does not have revenue-boosting measures, the implementation of the Ministry Management and Information System, MMIS, is expected to generate significant cost savings through increased efficiency and the reduction of duplicative manual processes. This, in turn, will enhance the delivery of public services and see a possibility where we can reallocate resources where necessary. We acknowledge the risk inherent in this budget and are taking steps to address them, as I mentioned before. The lack of adequate staffing in education and the absence of budgeted activities for youth policies and early childhood development pose serious challenges, including strained resources, strained personnel, reduced access to care, and potential social inequalities. In sports, reduced funding threatens our ability to develop facilities, programs, and athletes, compromising the health and overall well-being of our citizens. Reconstruction projects remain critical, but rising costs and sustainability requirements necessitate careful planning and financial provisions to secure long-term benefits for our schools, libraries, and programs. Despite these risks, we are steadfast in our vision to create a resilient and inclusive society. I urge Parliament to continue its support of our mission and work collaboratively to mitigate these challenges. Together, let us ensure that every citizen of St Maarten has the opportunity to thrive and contribute to the nation's progress. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Minister Melissa Gomes, thank you so much for that presentation on the Ministry of ECYS. Thank you very much, Minister. And we continue, and I now invite the Minister of Public Health, Social Development and Labour, Minister Richnel Brug, to, oh yes, we're going to have a transition to the Minister again. So we're going to adjourn for about 5 minutes and allow the Minister or the ministries to transition to the next ministry up, which is the Minister of Public Health, Labour and Social Development, or Social Development and Labour. And so we're going to adjourn for 5 minutes. Meeting adjourned.